Well, yeah, it was almost baptism by fire, if you want to say
The
that.
Bible, yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
I started to study it, and I ran into many disturbing things. Many disturbing things. For instance, I was always born and raised and taught, my family, my relatives, Islamic teachers. I went to Sunday, you call it Sunday school, Friday school,
Yes,
Islamic school. Yeah. And I was taught that in Jerusalem, where the temple is, that temple, where the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque is,
yes,
that the Solomon's temple, the Jewish temple, never existed. As a matter of fact, if you go underneath it, they say even today that it's other mosques, older mosques. So it's sitting atop other mosques.
Those mosques would be before Muhammad.
Right. And so I decided, as part of my study, to investigate, of course, and I did. And you can only imagine, right? You can only imagine what I found.
Yeah.
I found the foundations of Solomon's temple intact. They were not part of the mosque. The inscriptions are still there.
Yes.
You can see it as clear as day, and anyone could.
Not unless the Muslims wrote in ancient Hebrew.
Right, exactly. And they didn't, obviously. Yeah. And I brought a few witnesses. And they're not allowed to bring a video camera, but we took some pictures.
Oh, boy.
We took some pictures. But I needed it for my evidence.
Yeah.
And that was part of my walk. I had to investigate every part of it, Zola. Why? Because the cost of conversion is great.
Oh, sure.
Very great.
Yeah. It is in Judaism, too.
Sure. And I could not just say, okay, I'm going to convert to Christianity. It wasn't going to happen. I wanted to give the benefit of the doubt to my own faith and to my own culture. And I still love my people.
Yes.
I would not, I'm not going to lie about that. I love my people, of course I do. But the culture and the faith, I needed to know my faith. I wanted to get to the root of it so I could be a true follower of Allah. So I did. And as I studied, the more confused I became. It was supposed to be the other way around. I was supposed to be more confident in my faith. I was becoming more and more confused. So, other examples. Who wrote the Quran? Where did it come from?
Yes.
How do we know it's real?
Yes.
Where did the Bible come from? There's a book, and the title of the book says, "What did Jesus really say?" ? Written from a professor at Al-Azhar University in Egypt. Of course, you're familiar with that. It's one of the greatest teaching institutions in the world.
Oh,
and if
sure.
you're anyone in Islam, teacher, scholar, professor, you'll come out of this university. It's a 750-page, 765-page book. And in this book, it has thousands and thousands of supposed errors in the Bible. I was very excited to find this. Very excited. I ordered it all the way from Egypt. And I brought it here. It took a couple of weeks, but I got it. And as soon as I got it, I knew I was going to be able to finally destroy the Bible, prove that the Bible was a false book, false doctrine.
Now that you had the top level of professors,
Sure.
It's like going to Harvard and then coming home
Sure.
a little disappointed, huh?
Of course. Well, yeah. In addition to that, watching debate tapes, the top Muslim debaters in the world, with some Jewish and Christian, have dialogue and debates and open formats in front of thousands and thousands of people. For instance, in Durban, South Africa, I'm sure you heard of Ahmadida and Josh McDowell, in front of 11,000 people. And all the great points will come out on those formats. And so you learn a lot.
Yes.
You learn a lot when you do that. And I decided to do that. Well, here's the problem. Those contradictions that were supposed to be about the Bible, that the Bible's corrupt and changed, not a single one. For instance, it says concerning the Holy Spirit, and in John 14, it talks about John 14, 15, and 16, it's referencing the Holy Spirit.
In the upper room, yeah.
Sure. But in this book, it's saying that the Holy Spirit was an angel. But the Bible is very clear. 2 verses below, it tells you what the answer is. In most cases, 90% of the cases of the contradictions in this book, if you read 2 or 3 verses above or 2 or 3 verses below, you'll find the answer. So what they did was they'll take one verse out of the Bible and say, look, this is what the Christians believe. But if you just read 2 more verses, you'll find your answer. So this is what's happening. They're manipulating the mind. Now, how do they get away with that? How did I get deceived that way? Well, I'm being told that the Bible is a corrupt book. You're not allowed to touch it, let alone read it. So, in essence, it becomes a sin to examine it. So, therefore, I'm not told to study it.
Well, people quote out of context from the Quran, too, but the important thing is the Bible doesn't say go find this particular group of people and kill them.
Right. Well, unfortunately, you're right. You're absolutely right. Well, that was part of the problem. After examining these things, again, Zola, I was getting confused, but I'm starting to see inconsistencies now in my upbringing, in my teaching, in my philosophy, in my indoctrination. I started to see holes. So that just led me further to investigate. Well, for the next 3 years, that's what I did. Morning to night, I investigated. I got to the root of it. And I came to the conclusion, theologically speaking, especially concerning the corruption of the Bible, there wasn't a single shred of evidence from any scholar, not just Muslim, or anyone else in the world that could prove that the Bible was corrupted in any which way, historically, theologically, archaeologically, in any which way.
Yes.
Not a shred of evidence anywhere. Yeah. And I was stunned to find that, because that's one of the main doctrines that are being taught, that Muslims are being taught, that the Bible is a corrupt book.
Yeah.
There is no evidence for that.
Yeah. But in your case, that's a costly thing to find out. The Bible itself says, count the cost.
Yes.
Because
So,
you were faced with a terrible decision.
I was stunned. Not only that, I had to also study the reverse. I had to study the Quran.
Yes.
And I was running into problems, running into holes. I would speed dial the mosques on the phone and ask for answers to questions that I could not believe I was hearing. And I would pound my head on the desk. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Most of the responses were basically just saying, look, accept by faith, do not ask. Why? Because technically there aren't any answers.
I'm afraid the same thing goes on with the rabbis. I did the same process. I talked to the synagogues, forget about it. Nothing relevant to say about your questions, just don't ask. I mean, all right, so the Lord came to you in this way?
One day, after about 3 years, after I knew theologically it was true, I got on my knees and I said, God, I know the God of this Bible is real. I know you're real. I'm asking you now to reveal. And I prayed that prayer every day for months after that. Even though I knew theologically, I had another problem, Zola, the biggest problem of all. What do I do with my hard heart? 99% of that hard heart was directed towards my hated enemy, the Jew.
Yeah.
Because what I was reading in the Bible is that all of us are the same. In other words, the Jew is not less than me. And all my indoctrination, that they're my enemy, and I hate them for many reasons, I had to let go. I knew I had to. The Bible is telling me we're all the same in God's eyes. He's no respecter of persons. How am I going to let this go? In other words, I wanted to believe the Bible, but I wanted to keep my hatred.
Oh, yeah. No, that won't work.
Didn't?
Yeah.
So for months it went on. Finally, God purged me of it.